Hello friends and welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're going to make mozzarella stuffed chicken breasts. So what you see on my counter is what we're going to use to make these, and really there isn't a lot going into it, but for what you have here, you're going to have the most amazing taste coming out of this, because when you stuff this cheese into the chicken, you bread it, you bake it, you do everything you need to do to this, it just has the best taste to it. Plus the fact we're going to serve this with some marinara sauce underneath of it, which is going to give it an even added punch of flavor to it, because it has this kind of sweet tomatoey taste going up against all the seasoning that goes into the breading on the chicken, and together they just work together to have the best taste. And then the bonus is you got cheese in the middle, so the mozzarella just makes it all that much better. So the whole thing working together is amazing. So we're going to start out by cutting up our chicken breast. So we're going to go ahead and take off all of the fat, all of the tough edges, anything that needs to be removed, because we want to clean these up before we start doing anything else to them. So take your breasts. I have 4 of them. Now mine are kind of like medium to small side. You can go for bigger ones if you want to, because this is just one of those things where whatever you have on hand, you can work with it. Go ahead and just make sure these are completely cleaned up. And once we get everything off the outside of it that needs to go away, we're going to use a small knife and literally cut into these, like right around the top corner of our edge of it, to actually cut a hole to stuff the cheese into. And you just want to work it down through the chicken to where you have like a cavity inside of here where we're going to just basically slide this cheese into it. So just go ahead and do this for each one of these. Now, sometimes when you're doing this, the knife will actually go through the bottom a little bit, and that happens because sometimes when you're cutting chicken, they're not exactly flat and even. It just happens. But once you get the hole in there to where you can slide the cheese in, even if there's a little tear in the chicken or whatever, it's going to be fine, because the cheese will mostly stay inside of this while we're cooking it. It's just the way it's going to work. And once you get each one of these cut up, we're gonna go wash our hands before we start messing with the cheese that's gonna go inside of there, because I can't say this enough. Wash your hands when you're playing with chicken. We don't want to cross-contaminate anything. We don't want to get any of this on your counter or touch things and move it around, because you just really need to stay clean with this. So we have 8 ounces of mozzarella cheese, and I suggest getting the block because it's so much better to deal with. And just cut these in slices, like, really long strips, almost like you were having, like, slices of string cheese in a way. And we're just going to use this to, once it's here, cut across it all the way down, take it, turn it the other direction, and cut across, and have these wedges that we're sliding into the chicken. It's just easier to deal with as a block as far as sliding it in, rather than if you had shredded cheese and you're trying to push inside of it, because that can be a little bit of a chore trying to stuff that in there and make it go all the way in. So as you can see, mine is all cut up and I am ready to put it into my chicken. So all I'm doing is opening up this wedge in here and just like go ahead sliding each one of these in. Now, as you're doing this, you're just going to work in as much as you possibly can cheese-wise inside of this, and the bigger the chicken, the more you can do. So 8 ounces is going to work for 4 pieces of chicken breast. But, once you are doing this, don't do anything with that cheese if you have any left over, if you've touched it with the chicken, because you do not want that. You've already contaminated it. So go ahead and use as much as you can inside of your chicken breast, and you should be able to use all of this, because when I got done with mine, I was able to squeeze it in. I just kept going back and adding more into it and working it inside where the hole is in the chicken. So work with it, get it in there, make sure it's in there. And as I said, if you have bigger chicken breasts, you're going to easily use up this cheese. It's not a problem whatsoever. But put some in, come back to it, add more as you go. And then we're going to set up our little areas where we are going to be breading this chicken. So we're going to start off with one plate, which we have a cup of all-purpose flour and then 1/4 of a cup of cornstarch. And then once we get this together, we're going to mix it up a little bit so that way the cornstarch goes throughout the flour. This is just going to help give a little bit of an edge with that cornstarch on the outside of the chicken when you're baking it. Or we're going to put it in a skillet first, then we're going to bake it. However, it's going to actually just give it a little bit of a crispiness on the outside. Then on the other plate we have here, we are adding 3/4 of a cup of panko. Then to this, we're adding 1/4 of a cup of Parmesan cheese, and then a bunch of seasoning. So we have 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Then to this, we're adding 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/2 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and 1/2 teaspoon of thyme. And then we have the bowl, which you're going to add 2 large eggs to this. So we're going to get the eggs in there, and then we're going to break them up and mix them up just like you're scrambling them for eggs pretty much, because we want to mix this up and get the egg yolk broken up, because if you don't break up the egg yolk, it's just going to float around in there. You really need to mix it completely through. So just take a fork to it, whisk it up a little bit, make sure that it's all there, because this bowl is actually big enough to dip the chicken into. Now, when you're dipping your chicken, you have your cheese inside of this, just kind of hold it together so that way it stays together. And then once we're ready, we're just going to go from piece to piece here to work this through. So go ahead and mix up those seasonings into your panko and make sure that's ready to go. And then what we're going to do is we're basically going to take each piece of the chicken and work it through what we have here. So we have our chicken, we're going to dip it in some egg. Then once we get it coated with that, we're going to take it over, roll it around in the flour, and get that coated that way as well. And then once we get it from that, we're going to take it back over to the egg again, and then we're going to go to the panko. Now, once this gets wet, you're like, oh, well, your flour's going to come off. Not all of it. No, it's actually going to be there. It's just going to look wet. So once you get this done, take it over, put it into the panko, and really press this in, because you really want to press the outer part into the panko and all of the seasoning and everything, and get this really coated. And we're going to do this for each one of these to where it has a really thick coating on the outside, and that's the whole goal here, is to get it really coated. So once we get each one of these done, we're going to move on to a large skillet, which we're going to have this on medium-high heat, and we are going to add to this probably anywhere around like 4 tablespoons of olive oil to maybe even 5 at that rate, because we want enough in the bottom to actually cook all of this chicken. And then once we get it in there and we have the temperature coming up, we're going to add the chicken to the skillet. And what we want to do is make sure that they're not overlapping. They're kind of like sitting beside each other in a way that all of them will fit, and the whole surface of the bottom is going to get cooked evenly. Now, once they're in there, we want to cook these for anywhere from 4 to 5 minutes on each side. So that way, we're going to give it kind of a brown look on the outside of it, really cooking it. But it's not going to be completely cooked, because it's going to finish cooking in the oven. So we just want to get it started in the pan, so that way the outside of this is going to get a good coating of the oil, and it's actually going to get a really good brown coat, like it's got a golden coating on it from where it's been cooked. We just want to make sure that we kind of crunch up the outside of it, give it like that edge where when you cut into it, it has a little bit of resistance. So let it cook. Once you get to the 4 to 5 minutes, we're going to flip this. And if you have to, you might have to put your fingers in there on top of the chicken to flip it over. And as you can see, that's what I'm talking about, getting that edge on it. So that way, that side is cooked. And we're going to go through and flip them, and then they're going to cook for another 4 to 5 minutes on the other side until we get it looking the same way. So about this time, you're going to want to preheat your oven to 400 degrees, because when these go in there, they're going to cook for 20 to 25 minutes until they're done. One way of checking to make sure they're done is to check with a thermometer, which means they need to be 165 internal temperature, just to make sure that that's 165 degrees. Then we're going to take a pan, coat it with some aluminum foil, use some nonstick cooking spray, and then we're going to put 2 cups of marinara on top of this pan. So you need a pan that has edges on it, so that way, the marinara doesn't run off when you're cooking. And once this is completely on there, we're going to bring our chicken over and sit it on top. And we're going to put all 4 pieces in here. And that way, when it's in the oven, it's just going to cook off the rest of the way. And then you're going to serve this with the marinara when you're actually going to eat it. So 400 degrees, 20 to 25 minutes. It'll come back looking something like this, and serve it with a vegetable, and you have a really great meal. This is just something really wonderful to eat. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, check out the Southern Mountain Kitchen website, where you can get a free recipe, check out the cookbooks available from the Southern Mountain Kitchen, and if you'd like to, you could order a cookbook at a discounted price, cheaper than Amazon, with shipping that is also cheaper than Amazon. So if you get a chance, check it out, and I hope you have a great day.